Okay, the next speaker is Dr. Shadan Sadeghian, and she's a postdoc researcher in the Department of Ubiquitous Design and Interaction at the University of Siegen in Germany. And her research focuses on developing particle design-oriented methods for the participatory development and evaluation of health-oriented AR or VR applications. And the topic she will share with us today, as shown on the screen, is an exploration of prosocial aspects of communication cues between automated vehicles and pedestrians. Thanks. Yeah, you can.
So first of all, thanks for the, you can hear me, right?
Correct.
Okay, and the presentation, I guess, is also working. So first of all, thanks for the introduction and thanks for inviting me. Yes, my name is Shadan Sadeghian, and I'm presenting today a work which is published actually 2 years ago at AutoUI, and in collaboration with Mark Hassansal and Kai Eckel, titled as An Exploration of Prosocial Aspects of Communication Cues Between Automated Vehicles and Pedestrians. Thanks to Yiman for introducing AHMIs and the communication between road AVs and pedestrians. So we know now more or less like a little bit about it, at least I hope. And then, so I will keep on saying what I'm going to talk about, these specific HMIs in the context of automated driving. So when we look at road traffic is a social situation. So people are expected to treat each other with respect and care and mindfulness and take care of themselves and each other, theirs and each other's safety in this situation. But we all know that's not always the case. Like when traffic becomes very dense in dense situations, people tend to get a little bit more aggressive and not very mindful of their behavior. In the case of manual driving, the communication between the driver and pedestrians are mostly nonverbal, and they can sometimes, for example, sorry, communicate indirectly through vehicle movement, like for example, by speed and acceleration, and also nonverbal communication, such as facial expressions, eye contact, gestures, or body movements. But like these communications that I just said have effect definitely on the safety, but also they also contribute to prosocial driving. What is prosocial driving? Prosocial driving is defined as driving behaviors that potentially protect the well-being of passengers, other drivers, and pedestrians, and that promote effective cooperation with others in the driving environment. Now let's go to look at the automated driving situation. You see, like here, I have a picture of a car which is driverless. But even if you have a like level 3 automated vehicles, when the driver is busy with doing some non-driving related task, this communication might be missing. That, for example, the direct communication I'm talking about, that like these gestures, body language, and so on. And then the question is that how mindful and prosocial do automated vehicles behave and communicate in the traffic? In the last years, many researchers looked into different designs of communication cues between automated vehicles and pedestrians, from like anthropomorphic designs with eyes and smiling faces to different light displays or projection on the road by the car or the projection on the road by the infrastructure. But I have to add something here. But most of these works actually have looked into whether these communication cues are effective, what is the reaction time, how good they can be perceived, and so on. But at least to the point that we did this study, none of the works really looked into what is the effect of this sort of communication cues in terms of prosociality of the traffic situation, or how do they change the climate of this whole traffic network. So what we did, we had a project a couple of years ago in which we started looking into designing different like cue design language, basically, because that was not just in the scenario of yielding, it was also many scenarios, like for example, saying thank you or saying sorry or so on. And we designed different cues on a projection based cues, as you can see in this picture. And but in this very specific study that I'm going to present today, we just like I'm just presenting the yielding and cue from this language. And the yielding cue was like that the car, when it's arriving, it creates like a projection, like in a white color, a corridor on the road. And depending on its speed, this corridor can get like bigger or smaller. As soon as the car stops, this corridor turns into a bar that shows that the car has stopped. And then it can also trigger like by like this movement of the hand, like that you show that now you can pass with a green sliding projection on the road on top of the bar so that the road user knows that it's safe now to pass. And this could be triggered either by the car itself or um, by the driver of the non-driving vehicle. So to answer a question, whether like these communication cues have an effect on the prosociality of the traffic situation and the climate of the traffic, we conducted an experimental vignette study. I'm going to explain what does this mean, vignette study. We had 72 participants, 47 female, and 3 factorial mixed design. We had half of our participants looking at different scenarios of like yielding in front of a pedestrian with the cue and the other half without the cue. So cue was our between subject. We also had 4 different traffic scenarios, and each participant had to go through all these scenarios. So basically within as a within subject. And finally, we had role of the participants. So participants had to rate the traffic climate and prosociality of the situation once from the perspective of the driver of the automated vehicle and once from the perspective of the pedestrian. We designed 4 scenarios. Here, I'm going to show the scenarios and you're going to look at the small videos. So this is what it means, vignette study. In a vignette study, you explain a situation in the level of detail that it communicates the details that you want to test in your experiment through a video or through a text or whatever medium that you wish to. And then you ask participants to put themselves into the place of a specific role of the person in the video or also from their own third-person perspective to rate the situation. And this is a very well-known research method, especially in social sciences. So I just start playing this video. The first scenario is called the traffic light. Oh. There's the second scenario, unsigned traffic crossing. This is a zebra crossing. And this is the pedestrian zone. So as you could see, we chose 4 scenarios from different perspectives. First of all, the age, gender, and the vulnerability of the users, and also the like amount of existing traffic regulations in the environment. And in each, so in our study, what we did that the like first the participants could look at the videos, and then like we also made like pictures like this ones, as you can see, the highlighted pedestrian and highlighted automated vehicle, and then they could also take a look at these video stills that we provide them in each section of the questionnaire to like rate the situation. So our question had two parts. One part was dedicated to the perception of the communication, and with 5 Likert scale questions that was saying that communication was adequate, communication was clear, communication was effective, I trust the communication, I trust the car to make appropriate actions, and I feel safe around the car. Then we had also the traffic climate perception of prosocial, sorry, that's a type of prosociality, and which had 11 semantic differentials. For example, like tense, harmonious, aggressive, friendly is like how you perceive the situation, and they had to rate it. Let's go to the results. So when we looked at the results, we saw that with the cues, with the communication cues, participants perceived the communication better than without the cues. And participants perceived the communication better from the perspective of the driver than the pedestrian. We also saw a main effect of scenario. In the unsigned traffic situation, people perceive the communication better than the zebra crossing, better than the pedestrian zone, and better than the traffic light. We also found a two-way interaction between role and scenario in the communication. So, like as you can see here, like for example, here the difference between driver and pedestrian is bigger, and like in comparison to the other ones. And then we saw that, like for example, in the situations that the communication, there was rules, traffic rules were more clear, there was a bigger difference between driver's perception and the pedestrian's perception of the communication. Because, and one explanation for that is that the driver already knows what to expect from the pedestrian while crossing, and then they expect that the pedestrian goes according to the rules, and then they don't have to worry, and then they like assume it as a consequence of a good communication situation. Then when we looked at the traffic climate results, we saw that there was a significant effect of the traffic climate on the driver, like on the role. Like for example, the drivers perceive the traffic climate better than the pedestrians. And we also thought that maybe the driver felt that, for example, that because it's in a less vulnerable situation, they thought that it's like more calm, more safe, more friendly, the whole situation in comparison to a pedestrian. And then we also saw a significant main effect of scenario. Again, we saw that the unsigned crossing had a better traffic climate than the zebra crossing, than the traffic light and the pedestrian zone. This also explained like by the two-way interaction between the role and the scenario. And we saw that only in these two scenarios, the driver had a better perception than the pedestrian about the traffic climate. And when you look at it, also you see that like in these two scenarios, there are also like regulations. You can see the traffic light and also the zebra lines here. But when we looked at when we wanted to see whether the existence of these communication cues had an effect on the perception of traffic climate, as you could see in all here in the traffic light scenario, there was no difference, but the other three scenarios had a similar pattern, like that with the cues, the communication was, the traffic climate was perceived better than without the cues. So to check this out, we did another ANOVA excluding this one scenario to see whether there is an effect of Q. And we saw that, yes, there's actually a strong effect of Q. And this could be explained by the fact that, again, in the traffic light scenario, because the whole situation is so regulated and there are so clear expectations of the behavior, the traffic climate is not improved with the cues. And but in the other situations, because there is also still some vague information or vague expectations of what's going to happen next, even in the zebra crossing, we saw that one car decided to stop and the other one didn't. And there is this like ambiguity of this decision making, and then therefore existence of cues actually improves the traffic climate. We also saw a strong correlation between communication and also the perception of the traffic climate. Like, for example, the better the communication between the automated vehicle and pedestrian is, the better the perception of the traffic climate. So what does this mean? The first question is that are communication cues between pedestrians and automated vehicles needed at all? From a pragmatic perspective, with cues, participants found the communication more clear, effective, and could trust the vehicle better. But, and also I have to say that previous work also have shown that all these cues are helpful in understanding the intent of the AVs and are improving actually the whole situation. But from a prosocial perspective, there's a positive correlation between communication and how the traffic climate is perceived, but it's highly dependent on the traffic situation. As we could see in some of the situation, it could lead to a better climate, but in some of them, actually, it could actually decrease the quality of the climate of the traffic. So therefore, in the future, the design of the communication should highly consider the variances between these traffic situations. Here, I close this presentation because I think I'm also running out of time, and you could for sure contact me for more questions in this regard. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Any questions from our on-site audience? I want to start with the question. I think you have been asked about the projection thing, because I also use projection as external HMI for the communication between the AV and MV before. But I was also asking when I did the presentation why I use the projection, because it's maybe it can't make sense or doesn't work in the very special weather condition. For example, with the strong light or with the rainy days, there's a very strong reflection on the road, and the projection could not be perceived or detected by the road users. And I'm just wondering why you choose projection instead of the display on the bumper or something else, or the light band, for example.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, you're right. I think that the projection has its limitations. That's true. Back in the time, we looked into several types of, as I showed you, like also in one of the pictures, several types of communication cues with the vehicle and the pedestrians. And Andreas Loken, who is also presenting today, had done a very, very nice literature review on the EHMIs and the communication cues, and also has shown that different, his literature review also shows that how effective, I think it was one of the most effective ways of communication between pedestrians and other road users. The other reason we chose is actually this paper is not about the design of the communication cues, but also the prosociality, of the whole communication as a means. So this could also be different with different types of communication, the results of this paper, but the focus of this study was not the design per se, but also the effect of the communication on the prosociality.
Thanks so much. And I've got a follow-up question. It's a short one. I'm not sure if there's some relationships between the personality of the pedestrians or the drivers to their evaluation to the prosocial behavior of the traffic climate or the behavior. If they're, because this I think I can't remember the name of the scale. It's there are 5 types of personalities, including prosocial and also competitive. This, if their own personality will impact their evaluation to the prosocial behavior of the traffic climate. I think this is
that's a good.
That's clear.
I'm familiar also. Thank you for the question. And I'm familiar with the concept of personality traits and their effect of their, I'm not sure if it's causality, but correlation maybe, relationship with the behavior or attitude towards prosociality. We didn't consider this in this study because we were actually going first. This was a very first study to look into whether, in general, a specific type of cue. Because, like for example, when we also look at the outcome of the industry, like the lights of the vehicles are basically having more or less the same intention. I mean, the form and the shape changes, but they're more or less having the same intention of communication. And we were looking whether such a product, like added as an add-on, as a communication means to the car, in general, can change the like traffic climate in total, regardless of the individual differences. But I think that if you reflect the prosocial behavior of your car, for example, if my car reflects my personality and yours, then that might be a different perception. We haven't unfortunately yet gone through that, but that's a valid question.
Thank you. Any questions from the online audience?
I have just one question. Oh, thanks for your presentation. Actually, in our ITC paper last year, the first author is Yang Li and Hao Chen and me called. In that paper, we found that the communication between the AV and the pedestrian is very important, but sometimes the negative feedback is most important for the sociality. So, for example, based on the communication between the human and human, sometimes the human driver and pedestrian, sometimes if you face some stupid pedestrian, you will boo boo, right? So do you consider to design or to propose some method by using some negative feedback in the EHFI?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So that's exactly like one of the reasons we decided to go for this research question is that mostly when we talk about the excuse me, someone has a mic on. I'm hearing my echo. Sorry, I'm not very good at talking when I hear myself. Could you please? Thank you. Thank you very much. So a lot of works when we talk normally as a community, for example, in automotive UI or intelligent vehicles, when we talk about the interaction between drivers and pedestrians, we normally look at this one-to-one. So if the pedestrian is not driving, we honk. So like they decide to like cross. But the thing is that when we talk about like the whole traffic as a network and like as a social context, this is a cascading thing. So like your negative feedback might work for a one-to-one situation and you might get what you want through that. But when it cascades through this, actually it reduces the general climate. And that's the whole thing. So like, because that's exactly the goal of this paper and the like message of this paper, that maybe we shouldn't go just for this one-to-one situation, because that actually can have a huge negative as like impact on the whole traffic. And you can go your way after the pedestrian crosses, but no one knows what happens with the other participants of the traffic because of the aggressive behavior or like the negative behavior that you're propagating through the whole network. And that's why we don't recommend that.
Okay, thank you.